I made it right
All
back
right.
in time. And you hit the mute button. Very good job. Welcome to our nightly show. We have a very special guest tonight sitting in the usually the seat that Michael takes. But exactly. But we have Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott, how's that?
You want me to unmute?
So I have all the microphones are plugged into my computer.
Mm-hmm.
So you are unmuted.
I am. You can hear me.
Absolutely. 100%.
Awesome. All right. Well, hello. Thank you for having me.
that mic is the other computer. So if you unmuted that, then you'd be hearing double. And people would be like, this stinks. I'm turning the channel because I hear double. So we went through quite a few different iterations of how the mics are set up. And I figured out if I can control all the mics, then I don't have double talk a lot. We don't have the double thing. We don't have, we're not bleeding over on top of each other. So,
we should talk about studios at some time, since we've been doing this computer club since 2009 and broadcasting it each year from San Carlos in a bar that has high-speed internet. And I have to track in 3 different computers. I have to drag in 3 different laptops and set them up to cover.
Oh, man.
And I know exactly what you mean about the microphones, because I have to be in control of everything.
Yes. So if you go back, our original setup was out in the front of the store. So we would set up at the table, which means I would get over here at 5:00 and start setting up the show. So we do every Friday with 3 of us, me and Michael and Jody. And so every Friday I would have to get over here at 5:00 and start setting up lights and computers and microphones. And I mean, it takes how much it takes. And then,
especially if it's temporary.
Right. And then, plug them all in and then get them all up and running. And then get them everything plugged in so it works correctly. And then check that everything, you know how that goes. So this setup, so finally I said, hey, why don't we take this nice glass table and let's put it in the back of the store.
You need a shot of this table when we talk.
Perfect. Oh yeah, no, I've done it a few times. But let's set it up there and let's do a permanent install. And we did. And so it's working out really, really well. We got a nice flow going on.
I love Michael's wall here. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Scott, and I am a big Star Wars fan.
Yes.
And so this feels very appropriate for me in the background here.
Absolutely. Yeah, Michael's kind of gone away from that. He's got some other stuff on the other side. So this is the first time in a while that we've had this side of the board. So yeah. So Scott and so just, I mean, this is kind of our first ever real interview. We've had some fake interviews on the channel before for our little comedy show. But this is kind of our first ever real interview. So, and
well, not only that, both of us are used to being in charge of the show. So we're trying to get our rhythm down as we're talking right now. I sure don't want to talk over Robbie, but I do want to introduce myself and say a little bit about my background.
Yes.
And the reason that Robbie's asked me to come in and talk is because I have this idea to give our digital personas protection. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But what I like to call it is the Bill of Digital Rights.
Yes.
So before we get into that, let me just say that I am Robbie and I've known each other almost a lifetime. I grew up in Alaska. My background is all in computers. It's been my career for over 30 years. And I've been fortunate enough in my lifestyle to have time to ponder these ideas of what technology is is bringing us, where we're going in the future, and what it means each year as it iterates and becomes more powerful and more collective of information. And I was discussing with Robbie about this concept. And actually, Robbie's heard me talk about these things before because it's just been part of my rap for many years. There are things that we just haven't thought about. And I've felt for a long time that we need to have a doctrine, something that enshrines protections for the individual as we go into the digital age. And I feel like the Bill of Rights is a very good model for individual protections. And so I feel like we need a similar type of document for the digital age. We need something that outlines fundamental principles that we should all be recognizing when we're looking at legislation, when we're looking at company policies, when we're trying to decide our own personal ethics in this technological world. We need some foundation, some guiding principles that we should all be following, and specifically creators of technology should be following. And so I got a bug up my ass the other day. I started scrawling these things out. They're things that I've been talking about for years. I talk about them in my computer club. I talk about them with my friends, and people have said, Scott, you need to write this down. Well, the other day I decided I would write them down. I came up with 10 fundamental principles, and I think we're going to talk about them a little bit here.
Yeah. So you've said, just to back up a little bit. So you've been involved in computers and been an IT person, professionally for, most of your life, right? I mean,
how old I am
since
more
college,
than
right?
My
and
life.
so us as, the age that we are, we have seen the development from a non-digital age, an analog age that we grew up in. Hi, Patty. So we grew up as kids in a very analog age, and then saw the initial digital age, right? And saw everything start converting to digital. And so, you kind of...
Robbie's struggling to say we're from Gen X.
Well, yeah, no,
yeah,
we are Gen X, but you don't, you lose the perspective of how much, some people have grown up now, like the Zoomers, millennials. They've always had this technology. They've always had this, they've always lived online, right? So you lose the perspective of what you're actually giving up, right? Without these, without the principles that you're talking about. The ball is in the court of the people that are developing the technology, or the people that are in charge of the technology. And this kind of tries to put it back into the personal
you're absolutely
right? Like giving the person, because a lot of people have said that the gold mining of the future is data. It's us. It's our lives. And as we were talking about before, there's more and more of us. As you talk about a digital person or a digital persona, and as we go on, more and more as time goes on, we become more of a whole person in our digital persona. Whereas before it was pieces of us, and now, or as we go on, there's more and more of us that is that digital person, and it's hard to separate between the real person and the digital person.
You couldn't be more correct. And we're watching it right now. We're watching governments try and put together regulation. Do we ban TikTok? How old do you have to be to use Google? Things of this nature are being put together. And what we're seeing, though, is we're seeing symptoms of a larger problem being addressed. If this was a medical condition, what you're doing is you're band-aiding the bleeding instead of figuring out why you're bleeding.
Nope, that's very good analogy there.
What this tries to do is it tries to bring it back down to something that we can start the decision making from. So we're looking for a solution, but we don't want to hurt our individual selves. Now, we've watched some of this going on in the European Union. We've seen, we actually, if you want to look at privacy and data protections, the European Union are the only model we have right now. They've put together regulation to protect the individual, but we have nothing in the United States. What we've got rules for conduct. We've put together laws for how you can do business with our individual information, instead of stating where that stops and starts in our commerce, in our discussions, in our discourse. Where does the digital person start and stop is missing from the United States. We are just an asset. We are just a commodity right now, a way for businesses to make money. And we are naked in this world right now. We have nothing we can point to say, you can't do that because this is me. And we do have that kind of thing in the Bill of Rights. We've built a government recognizing the Bill of Rights. And there isn't a law in this country that doesn't have to reflect on the Bill of Rights and be challenged if it's challenging one of those rights. And that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to build a foundation so that legislatures can have the tools to protect individual citizens from being abused by technology as it iterates, as it gets bigger, as it gets more and more into our lives. How do we protect the individual? I think we would all agree that in the end, the only reason that we're so interested in technology is for it to make our lives better. And that's just not happening when they're watching everything I do to sell me advertising.
Right. And I mean, because that's
or maybe I misspoke, to sell me to advertisers.
Yes.
That's what they're doing.
Sell you to advertisers, to sell you products, and also for the government to keep an eye on you to make sure that you're not putting something out there that they don't agree with.
Robbie, can I read just a couple of things from what I've put together here?
Yes. Should I bring it up online?
Sure, that'd be awesome. I just want to start with some statements to just make this clear.
Okay.
We want to hold creators of technology accountable. That's the whole idea here. And so I start with a statement that technology that exists for the sole intent of manipulating the real person for exploitation will not be tolerated and will not be condoned in our society. Technology that puts the digital persona at risk is also not condoned. With that in mind, I've put together this 10 rights that I think are very straightforward, that we can start a movement behind, and we can start pressuring our politicians, our local governments, all the way up to our federal government to recognize and ratify these rights. And I just want to go over the first one here because it kind of leads off to every idea. And that's the right to my digital persona. And what this is a real person has a right to any digital interpretation or abstraction of that real person. Essentially, anything out there that is represented as you, you have the right to. So whether you've put it together or somebody else has put it together, that's you in the digital world, and you have a fundamental right to it.
So if somebody takes your picture and it ends up on Facebook, that's you.
That's your picture.
That's your picture. That is you. That is a manifestation of you.
That's absolutely right.
Yep.
Now, I'm not trying to argue that I know how to implement these things.
Correct.
There are thousands of different ideas. Mm-hmm. But my point is for us to instill these rights, these fundamental rights in everybody, so that everybody's digital persona, the representation of themselves in a digital world, is protected.
Mm-hmm.
I go on to say these rights and protections are applicable in all circumstances in which a real person is represented as a digital person. And I define a digital person as the embodiment of a real person's digital activities and the data created by them or in their name. And, you know, you can't have these kinds of thoughts without living in the age that we do. And because of things like blockchain, we have the idea of immutability. And I feel like the only way that you could grant somebody else authority over your digital persona would be for it to be tracked immutably, so that that authority can be looked up. If we've got a company that is representing Scott, then there should be a digital unerasable note in our digital world that says Scott okayed this.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're in violation. And that comes to what you were saying about the pictures on Facebook. I may just let them be on Facebook because we're friends and you took a picture of me and I don't mind it being on Facebook. But if I minded, then I should have the right to have it pulled down. It is a picture of me. And there should be a process that allows me to go through that activity.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yes. I'm just going to stop there. I mean, because, well, there are copyright issues too, because you don't always own every picture of yourself, right? So, I mean, there is that. So, but you're correct that is for the arguments to take place of how this gets implemented, right? And how it works. Well, in regards to the existing laws that we have in, just as far as all kinds of things. So, you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Well, like in your example of the pictures, yes. You would always maintain a right to what happens to that photo because you are in it. There would be a right under these circumstances. If we were to do something like this, mm-hmm. you would be able to have a grievance. There would be a process. There would be, because it's one of our fundamental rights, it would have to be respected as such. Because it's one of our fundamental rights, the creation of systems that would collect data such as pictures and distribute them such as social media would have to design their systems around these rights.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, such a thing doesn't exist.
It does not. Yes.
There are a couple other things here that I really think we need to be thinking about. My next right in here is default opt out. And I like the name of it, but it does, mm-hmm. you do need to define what that means. And this is the idea that you are not obligated into anything at first. You cannot be obligated into any particular activity at first sign up of any digital service. Well, how I write it here is a user cannot be opted into services, solicitation, sharing of information, or sales. A person's opt setting can only be changed through a user's selection. For example, preferences cannot be changed by a service provider when they're making upgrades to their system or adding updates or change of ownership, like they've been sold to another company, or they decide to change the terms of service, or any other way that a creator might change a user's preference without a user's consent. It can't happen. It just Can't happen. You go into a service with a specific opt-out setting, which means they're not collecting on you. And if that's what their service is based on, then you're going to have to jump through a lot of hoops where they're educating you of why you're giving them this information. And then that information, that giving is tracked immutably. Here is where you said it was okay. Here is, so if there's a grievance, you're the one that has brought yourself into this. We have too many examples. One of my favorite examples is a Windows update. Your computer must update. Since Windows 10, you have no choice. You cannot. You can postpone some updates, but in the end, this operating system, because you've chosen to use Microsoft's operating system, eventually it will give you the update. Well, one of the most recent things that's been happening is settings have been changed. So they do the update.
Absolutely.
And they change your settings.
Yep.
All of a sudden, you're sharing when you didn't mean to share. All of a sudden you're exposed when you weren't supposed to be exposed.
Gotcha. Those kind of settings. Gotcha.
Those should not be allowed. We should look at that as a direct violation of our fundamental digital rights.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to change things. They just do. Why do they do it? For their own best interest.
Yes. No, that the creators, all of these, you mentioned terms of service specifically. And Scott, if you click up on the left, you'll see the chat button. If you click chat, you can bring up and see the folks who are talking.
I got it.
Hello,
can see
Theo.
Patty.
Hi,
I can
Theo.
see Theo. I can see Kat.
Okay,
Good
got
to
it.
see
Cool.
you guys. Thanks for being here.
I mean, when you talk about especially like terms of service, I mean, how often, I mean, for one, they make those terms of service things so people don't understand them, can't understand them, and they make them so long that they're not going to take the time to go through them. They're just going to click the yes, okay, whatever, let's get me to my thing, right? And a lot of times those terms of service means that you have consented to sharing your information with this, or signing up for emails. Like they'll say, you'll have a couple of check boxes, and the checkbox that says, please, check this box if you want to get emails and text messages and have us call you, constantly. And then also check this button if you have agreed to our terms of service. And a lot of times people don't uncheck those boxes, and then they wonder why is my email so full all the time? It's because you've checked these boxes. So yeah. No, that there's something that needs to happen there for sure. All right.
Oh my gosh, I'm trying to hang on to a thought I just had about your pie, and I'm losing. We may have to go back to it.
Okay, we can.
Well, I know what I was going to say. Those terms of service checkboxes that we're all approached with every time we install a new piece of software, they in themselves, in their essence, should be a violation of our digital rights. Because if we're generalizing, nobody reads them. Everybody knows if you want to use the software, you check the box. Mm-hmm. There is no protections for us as individuals. It's all protecting the company. The company has made the terms of service, so you can't sue. You can't have a grievance. They can do whatever they want with your information or whatever other horseshit they've put in their terms of service, which we haven't read because no normal person spends time reading terms of service.
No, they're way too long. And then, you're right. You're not the way to, you're either going to have to file a grievance on them. You're not going to be able to take them to court. A lot of times it's arbitration, right? And stuff like that. And so, yes.
There's an arbitration clause right now in automotives. I can't remember the specific details, but it was one company they had signed an arbitration clause for one company that was owned by another company, and so that meant they couldn't go to court over the other company.
Wow.
It was ridiculous.
So did you, now, I don't know if did you see the Disney one recently?
I will refresh my memory.
A person went to a restaurant
The Disney one's the one I'm talking about.
So he went to a restaurant in Disney, not a Disney park. It was not owned. The restaurant was not owned by Disney, but it was at the Disney property, right? And so,
and they were
this person had a very, very, was very allergic to a certain thing, and told them multiple times that they were allergic to this thing. And it was assured that this restaurant is known for them being good for people with allergies. Well, it turned out whatever he was allergic to, they had a lot of that in the food, and they ended up deceased.
I'm so glad you're remembering this, because this is exactly what I was trying to bring up. In this case, the customer had used Disney Plus for 30 days.
For 30 days.
Had clicked the box of terms of service.
Yes.
And what they didn't realize was that meant they had to do arbitration across all the Disney endeavors.
Forever. In
perpetuity.
The argument is in perpetuity, you can never sue Disney over anything, because you had a 30-day trial for Disney Plus. Now they backed off of it because
it's bad press.
Public relations killed them on that.
This is the problem we're having right now. Is the only kind of regulation that we really have to protect individuals is self-regulation by these organizations, and they only self-regulate at the fear of government regulation.
Right.
We've reached a point in our world where we have to be giving them fear of government regulation every day, every single moment, to keep them in line. It's just wrong.
Yes.
We should be building laws and company policies based on protections of us as individuals. It's our government.
Yep.
It represents us. I really don't care if a corporation exists or not at any moment in time, but I care more about it if it cares about me. And following these kinds of fundamental principles means it cares about me.
Yep. No, exactly. So, okay. First, creator rights. Let's move on to the third one.
All right.
That's an interesting one too, I think.
So the idea of this stems also from blockchain. The idea is fundamental, and some of these ideas you guys have already got. The idea is you made something, so it's yours. There's no question about that. It's yours. And for anybody else to use it, they've got to get your permission. And if what they've used of yours gets passed on with some new unique work, well, then that permission that you gave them must be passed on with their work. Again, taking a model from blockchain, and I'm trying very hard not to worry about implementation. I really do feel like that's the implementation of this stuff is really up to governments and the people. We have to demand how this stuff is going to be. But just to recognize that if I'm using somebody else's work, I am in violation of their digital rights. Now, they may allow me to do that depending on how I use the picture. Maybe I'm not profiting from it. Maybe it's for fun. Memes that go across the internet. I think there's plenty of room for that kind of stuff. But if I draw a painting, see how artistic I am. If I paint a painting and somebody sees that as great, and they put in the background of what they're doing, and they profit immensely simply because my background is there, well, then I should be able to have a claim on it. They just plucked it off the internet and sticks it behind them. All of a sudden they're generating money. I should have a grievance. I should be able to approach them.
Yes.
Because they have already violated my digital rights by grabbing my original work and using it, and they can't show me that I've given them permission. They can't show a court that I've given them permission. So they're already in violation of my digital rights.
This happens hundreds, if not thousands of times a day. It does. This thing that you're talking about right here happens daily. Like, and everything from photographs to videos and news videos, funny videos, animal videos, memes, drawings, whatever. This happens so many times a day because content is what society is craving for, or it's just what's driving entertainment right now, right? And so good content is very valuable, and creating that content is valuable, but then you've got a lot of creators that have a lot of eyeballs on them that may not be actual creating the content, but they're profiting from other people's content. And it happens a lot. It happens, like I said, daily on TikTok, on...
Have you heard of this most recent music streaming issue with this guy that since like 2018 he's been AI generating songs?
I saw something about that recently. Yeah. Like he's been AI generating songs, and he's been like having bots listen to
bot
it.
Farms.
And he's making millions of dollars.
That's right.
It's insane.
And actually, it's a good example of some of these ideas, because he's using an AI to build music that is in a similar style of popular music. And as the language models work, they've pulled from other songs that are out there. And so he's getting a beat track from some style music, maybe like a Drake track. He's getting lyrics from, I don't know, Ozzy Osbourne. He's meshing these styles together. But then it doesn't matter whether anybody actually got any value out of that. I don't know if anybody's actually listening to those songs. The part that was illegal, the part that was fraud, was when he started writing programs to sign up thousands of subscription users to listen to the music.
Oh my god!
And he did it across various platforms.
Right.
So it was on stream. What am I trying to say?
So
Spotify.
His bots are signing up for accounts. He's listening to the music and then profiting from those companies.
So on Spotify specifically, the way it pays their creators, in this case being musicians,
right,
is that they take all their revenue, all the streams, as 100%, and they grade on a curve. I didn't actually know this until this latest incident. They grade on a curve. They say, out of our 100% of streaming, how much was you versus the rest? And the ones with the highest percentages are making the most amount of money. They're getting those profits. So it's like they have a pool of profits, and they divide them to their creators based on what percentage of total streams was their streams.
Right.
So this guy got bots out there listening to his streams, bumping up those numbers, and quite literally stealing revenue from other creators because the total capacity of streams has been made fictitious by these bots. Now, here's my thought. This never needed to happen. If the AI that was generating the music had just watermarked it with the original creators, every one of the original creators would have a grievance against this guy.
Right.
Every one of to get the permission to make this AI generated music would have to go down a checklist of a dozen artists that would sign off on it being okay.
Right.
So he couldn't even have started this process, and he wouldn't even gotten to the bot farms because the music would have to be acceptable.
Right.
Again, I'm not trying to get into implementation, but that's kind of the idea behind these concepts.
No, like I said, the large creators, and I'm talking people on, with lots of eyeballs on TikTok. X is really bad about it. Twitter, is really bad about people just stealing other people's content, posting it, and then profiting from that, and not having to go through the, the pains of actually doing it, and then being out, because people will post this on their page and get a couple hundred views. Somebody will grab it, move or crop it so you can't see their watermark or who it's from, repost it and get 1 million views on it, or 6 million views on it. I mean, it happens daily. It's ridiculous. So I love number 3. Number 3 is awesome.
So in your example of a watermark, even if it was that simplistic, the act of removing it would be a violation of a digital right.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So you would have a grievance.
Yep, exactly. And the thing is too is it's easy to repost somebody or give them credit, right? It's so easy to give them credit, but
especially now.
Especially now, but they don't want that because they want the entire view. They don't want to share the view. They don't want to, that cuts down on how much they make. So, okay. Number 4.
All right. This is
passive smart. I really like this one too.
This is one of my favorites. I've been talking about this for years. Robbie, do you know that this season I run a bed and breakfast in the summer up here in Alaska?
You do? I had no idea. Oh.
And what happened to us this summer is we had a stove die.
Okay.
Yeah, an oven died.
All right.
Fairly expensive oven. We had the appliance guy come over, and it was really sad because he tested every component of the oven. He tested the timers. He tested the element. He tested the thermal diodes in it. He was able to make it work. But what was wrong was the computer. The computer was fried.
Really?
So we're stuck buying a brand new oven because there is no computer to replace the fried computer.
Can't replace the fried computer.
Now, this isn't the first time this has happened to our bed and breakfast. About 10 years ago, and actually this is probably what got me started on this idea. We had a beautiful wall installed refrigerator. Same issue. I mean, and just a tremendous appliance, works great. The motherboard goes out on it. It doesn't make anything cold anymore. How is that possible? A refrigerator has been around for 100 years or more.
How come
it doesn't make cold? I don't care about a computer. How come the oven won't bake?
Right.
I don't care about a computer.
Which the tech can make it bake.
Yeah.
The tech can make
the tech can turn it on.
The elements come on, and the tech can make the lights come on, but you can't.
So passive smart is my branding for this idea. I've never heard it anywhere else except for out of my lips. But my thought is appliances that perform tasks that could be performed without a computer must be able to perform without a computer. The oven has to bake. The microwave has to cook food on a timer. The refrigerator has to stay cold. The washing machine has to wash clothes. The dishwasher has to wash dishes. Smart needs to be modular. Smart needs to be upgradable or not required. It is not an active participant in these appliances.
It needs to be an option.
Yes. It's a special use. I wrote it down here. Smart is a special use enthusiast's add-on application to an appliance available at an owner's discretion.
My wife would love this. My wife would say, no, don't get any smart anything. Our microwave finally died, and we'd had that for like 10 years. So we went out and we got another one. And of course, this one had Wi-Fi, right? I'm like, cool. Cause I like these things, even though I agree everything should work without it. It's still fun to have it. Right. But it's got an app. It's got an app with Apple, and so you can put it on your phone. So, and it would give you a little warning or give you a little message that, hey, your food's done cooking, right? So Kat would get mad at me because she'd be sitting there and I would text her, hey, your food's done, even though I'm sitting in my office. Like, hey, hon, your food's done. She's like, burn. So eventually she turned it off. She's like, I am not doing this anymore.
Well,
but of course I turned it back on, but I haven't done that lately. But yeah, it's funny when I will still see that it'll pop up occasionally and say, oh, your food is done cooking. And I'm like, yep.
I've got a slightly less funny story on the same concept. Think about it like this, Robbie. What if you couldn't cook food if you weren't connected to your Wi-Fi network?
Oh my God.
Right?
That's yeah. No, that yeah.
So we, our friend Sydney, he comes and stays with me in Mexico for a month every year. And my TV died, so he decided, since he's the one that usually uses the TV in his area, he'd go ahead and buy another one. So he bought a really nice 60-inch Samsung and stuck it in our guest room. And as we're setting it up, we learn all the capacities of it. It's got HDMI inputs. I have 4 different HDMI inputs. It's got Wi-Fi. It's got a smart presence. It's got AirPlay capabilities so that we can use it as a wireless display. How awesome.
Right.
The only function we could use without signing up for a Samsung account was a dumb HDMI input.
Really?
That was it. I could hook it to a cable box. I could hook it to a Fire TV.
Okay.
But I could not use any of the smart in the TV. I could not use the wireless display. I couldn't put it on my wireless network and have it as an item to administer. All of these functions were shut down unless we signed up for a Samsung account. And you can bet we tried to get around it out of principle, not because we care whether we have a Samsung account,
right?
But because why would we buy a TV that we can't just use as a TV?
No, exactly.
Right?
Right. Yeah, totally.
And what Samsung has done is they've said, oh yeah, no, you've got all those capabilities, but you've only got 3 if you don't let us track you.
If you don't sign up for our account and then sign into your account while you're using it, you can't do these things. You can't do any of the fun stuff.
It's a heinous violation of our digital rights.
It is. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't opt into you tracking me. I don't opt into you collecting my information. I have no control over how long you hang on to it. Oh, well, actually I might, because they sell Samsungs in the European Union. And the EU is really the reason we've had so many protections, is because they're worried about it. Right now we're not.
Right. No, we're not. We don't worry about these things.
And when I generalize like that, I'm talking about our governments are not worrying about that.
Right, because people are not putting pressure on them to make them worry about it.
This has all happened so fast. I mean, like we started out this conversation. We're Gen X.
Yes.
We were here before all this stuff, and we've watched it all grow. I have kids that have grown up with it. They have been opted into tracking and without any of their knowledge. That's just the way things work.
And it's gone. The stuff has gone faster than we can even really, comprehend, because, we've only been flying. We've only had airplanes for less than 200 years. And for thousands of years before that, we've had people. We did one thing, and now all of a sudden we have to adapt so fast to these changing.
I think that's probably what you're trying to get at.
Yeah.
Is the development of technology, information technology. We've done in the last 30 years what happened in the last 200 years. Or the last
2,000 years, or the last 10,000 years.
We are not
so fast.
No,
we can't comprehend how fast this has actually happened.
The way that we are being manipulated and exploited grows tenfold every year with technology. And us as people, I'm not 10 times smarter at the end of the year. I can't keep navigating the potholes and destruction that technology is leaving as a wake. I
know our neurons fire slower and slower every year. It doesn't get any faster.
So I think this concept of fundamental protection for the individual as a digital persona would provide us with that kind of buffer relief, that kind of we would know that we have certain inalienable rights when it comes to digital technology that we could rely on. And I find my information out on some social media site that I didn't share it with. Somebody's violated my rights. There's a process for me to ask them to take it down because I have a right to take it down.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. No, I like that. Okay, so number 5, the right
to repair. So
repair.
Right to repair is something that we hear a lot these days. And this is a movement that's been growing over the last few years. I take a little bit of a more extreme twist on it, and I ask you to entertain this idea that anybody that's putting technology out there, any creator that's making technology, whether it's hardware or software, has a fundamental responsibility to be responsible for that technology. That if you're going to bring something into our society, you're going to be responsible circulatorily removing it when it's no longer necessary or desired, or to continue to maintain it. That this right is, and I start with saying physical technological waste, because that's what we're ending up with. We're ending up with old phones that don't have a place but the landfill, old TVs that don't have a place but a landfill,
computers and hard drives and everything that has been created. Yes.
And the stove story and the refrigerator, you know where both those devices, those thousands of dollar devices that work perfectly well except for their computer, that cannot be replaced because nobody has that part any longer, because the manufacturer has selectively stopped building the replacement parts. Right. And
they went to the landfill, right?
They went to the landfill. There's nowhere else for them.
Nope.
And so this right to repair is bigger than opening up the information to fix it. It's holding the creators responsible for what they throw out in our world. When they create something, when a company creates a technology, they need to be able to recover it if it's no longer going to be used. If they're not going to maintain it any longer, they need to provide that information so that other people can maintain it. It'll fall into the public domain. I guess that's what I'm getting at. By default, if a company, a corporation, a creator is going to abandon their technology, then they need to abandon it into public domain. By default, it becomes our property as a society, and as which we need the information to continue to maintain it. And so they need to make that public. If they're not going to fix it, if they're not going to recover it, or they're not able to, then what they have to do is provide us with the means to maintain it. And that goes right into the next one, the right to reuse. And the reason that I've separated them is because this should really fall into the realm of software as well. It's been one of the most frustrating things being a tech person, being a computer person, is watching as decent software is abandoned by companies to go out of business.
Yes, exactly.
You've got this tool, this application that does what it's supposed to do. It's a widget. It always widgets the same way. But if you're not maintaining that widget, then software updates, technology around that widget will change. All of a sudden, that widget stops working. if you're technologically inclined, you might want to fix that widget. I sure know that, like, when something breaks on my car, I got a buddy that wants to see it get fixed. And so he's out there with metal and 2x4s and bolts and whatever it takes to make that thing work again. But we don't have that with software because we don't have the innards of the software. It's considered proprietary, protected, and part of business and a business secret.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm proposing is no such secrets should exist in our society when you're going to walk away from your technology. Now, again, I don't want to get into implementation, but my imagination goes to organizations that we could have in the government similar to our patent system.
Right.
Where technology that's been allowed into our society is documented fully, and it's ready to be released when this technology falls into public domain.
A digital Library of Congress.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So back to the right to repair.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what a lot of people say, and kind of the saying goes, is they don't make things like they used to. It seems like they intentionally make a lot of more stuff that is disposable, right? Whether it's everything from razors to computers, like $160 computers that you don't necessarily like. It would cost more to fix than it would be to go get another one, right? And so, I mean, and now we are getting into the realm of implementation, but do you make it more palatable for businesses to make things so they can be repaired versus this disposable thing? I mean, because that, if we want to talk about things that are good for the environment, reusing a lot of things is something that we could all look towards, right? And so get away from the disposable world and get more back into things that can be repaired or can be upgraded or can be,
Well, I think about those kinds of things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I hate the idea that something gets chucked in the trash that's perfect. Just had this, or if we could just do this, it would still be in use. But you really are going to a much higher level in this.
Yes.
And my thought is, I don't care about what motivates these organizations to make these changes, other than we have decided that these protections are needed for us as individuals. And these organizations are just going to have to work around them. So if they're going to continue to make obsolescent products that have built-in obsolescence, well, then they're gonna reap the errors of their ways, because we're gonna hold them accountable when they don't make them available to be fixed, when they don't provide us with the information so we can maintain them ourselves. There is a class out there of fixers, and they have been the ones that have kept our stuff going.
Oh, absolutely.
And what's happening right now is appalling. I have talked to appliance repair guys that have lists of name brands to stay away from because they're watching them fall apart within months of purchase.
Right.
And if they don't, they're seeing that the parts available to fix these things are disappearing 3-4 years after the product's been released in the market. Yes. And if you get 7-10 years out, they don't even own. There isn't even a company by that name that makes a fridge of that model anymore.
Correct. And nor they're going to be the parts for it because it's gone on to a different part now, right? Oh yeah, no, exactly.
It's
the corporations have figured out how to get you to rebuy things, and that's because
that's where they're making their money.
They don't make money if you don't have to rebuy stuff. So yes, I totally agree.
What if we fundamentally shape the customer, what the customer is that they have to work towards through a set of rights that protects the customer? I bet.
I know.
Yeah, I bet we'll find less disposable products out there because on the other end, they're going to have to deal with them.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. If they're the ones that are responsible for when they do become obsolete, then by God, they'll make sure that they're not obsolete.
Yeah, they're either never going to break down.
Yep.
Or they're going to have a genuine policy of getting them repaired, working with third parties to do repairs. And they won't do it out of the goodness of their heart. They'll do it because we're threatening regulation and fines if they don't.
Right. And I mean, make the repair part of it part of their, I mean, make it so it's beneficial to them too, right? Like you could do that. You could make it so it benefits you. So anyway, as a looking at it from the company side. So okay, number 7, ISP failure fallback. I'm gonna let you talk while I go run somewhere real quick.
Okay. Well, this one's a little clunky, but the idea I think is sound. Because we now look at internet the same way we look at water or electricity. It is not an option. It is one of the fundamental utilities that, being human, it's necessary. It needs to be in every house. It needs to be in every school. It is a part of every moment of our lives. We carry it around in our pockets. And so it's just disappointing that so much of the internet is reliant on one connection or two. You go into any internet market, there's always one or two internet providers. There isn't 6. I mean, if somebody out there can choose from 6 internet providers, let me know. And I'm not a big Elon Musk fan, but thank God for Starlink, because all of a sudden, every poorly supported internet provider in all areas has an alternative. There is a second, finally. Especially rural areas have never seen speeds like that before. The ISP failure fallback idea is that a community should determine what a minimum bandwidth requirement is needed. And then that should be guaranteed by the internet service providers in that area. And that guarantee should be backed up with reasonable relationships between alternate ISPs. So basically, your backbone in any circumstance should have 2 backbones. And the secondary backbone should turn on at least the minimum bandwidth that a community has decided must be guaranteed. In this manner, any outages of internet can be reduced down to the smallest number of down connections. I think that earlier this summer, we had some power outages here in Anchorage, and they were just blips on the radar. Just power went out, power came back on. You probably heard me mention Mexico. I spent a lot of time living down in Mexico. It was a really embarrassing summer for stable electricity in my area of Anchorage, just downtown, because we had so many blips in power this summer. I lost count. And it didn't compare to anything that I'd experienced in Mexico. So it was a little embarrassing. One of those blips popped up and the entire neighborhood lost internet. I called GCI, the one internet provider. I guess there is another. And now with Starlink, there's a third. And I was assured, there's nothing you can do. It is our problem. There are over 190 connections right now without internet. We're working on it. 190 residents have lost internet. They lost it for 12 hours. People were going nuts. I mean, it's like losing water for 12 hours. Are you losing electricity for 12 hours? And you'd feel it even more if you're a remote worker. All of a sudden, you're cut off from your job. You're a remote student. All of a sudden, you're cut off from There's no reason for this in this day and age. It's 2024. The only reason there isn't a fallback is because they're in competition with each other, because they're both trying to make money. They're trying to gain you as a customer. What we should be doing as a community is requiring an internet service provider to have a fallback plan so that we can reduce the number of outages to the smallest connections. And that's what the failure fallback idea is.
No, this one right here is, it makes me so angry because this is purposeful. The ISPs, if you look at the big ones, how they're set up throughout the country, you will see that they purposely stay away from each other's areas. They do that on purpose. So
like cartels.
It is absolutely a cartel, and they will not, they don't speak about it, but like whoever's in Phoenix, the other ones are not going to move into the Phoenix area, right? Nothing holding them back from doing it. There's no regulation that says that they can't come into any metropolitan area and offer their service. But they won't do it because they know that, it's collusion without being collusion, basically.
And if I could comment on your specific Phoenix example, it may not be the best example at this moment.
Okay.
What has happened in the Phoenix area, and I know this, I do, I'm an IT manager for a fiber optic splicing company in Phoenix. And what's amazing, what's changed in their local government is they have changed their regulations so that third parties can come in and install fiber in a neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
So it's no longer only the internet providers.
Interesting.
So it's no longer the Cox Cable is the only one that's allowed to install fiber. If you have a community, say a block or a condo division, you can hire a fiber optic company to come and wire up that area, and you can get it connected to the large fiber optic rings, and then you can buy internet service from one of the providers, and it does not have to be Cox.
Interesting. Well, that's cool. There should be more of that going on because there's not right now.
And I'm not certain what prompted it, but if history tells us anything, what do you want to bet they were going to start regulating it?
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh, of course, yeah. No, of course.
None of that happens out of the goodness of people's heart or a goodness of corporations' hearts. They have no hearts. They are not people.
Correct.
This list of rights is about guaranteeing the protections of people.
It is. It absolutely is, which is, we need more of this. Okay, so right to remove.
All right, so
number 8.
The right to remove. A service must remove any data a user has shared with that service on request by the user. We're essentially saying what we were saying before. I'm in charge of my digital persona, and services have to respect that. Service must provide a means for a user to collect and download all data they've shared with that service. You've already watched this happening. We don't have regulation in the United States for this, but they do have it in the European Union. And because of the way technology works, because of the profit, the profit motive, they don't have two different systems for Google in the United States and in Europe. When Europe started making it mandatory that their users should be able to download all the data they've shared, it became available to us in the United States, not through regulation or protections, but by default, adjunct default. Because
they had to.
If they
had to for Europe.
That's right. If it was profitable to make two different systems, they would make two different systems. It's not. And we all know this about technology. It's the reason that California is able to dictate emissions throughout the United States. It's too expensive to have different rules. It's too expensive to maintain two different Facebooks, one that won't give you your data back and one that will in the European Union. And I'll couple that with expense isn't the only reason that they've done this. They're hoping we won't regulate them. So they're tossing us a bone. This is an olive branch. Here, you can do like they do in the European Union. There's no reason for there to be a rule or a law. We've just made it available to you. And this has happened across the board. You can go to Google and get all your data back. You can go to Facebook, get all your data back. You can go to Twitter and get well, I say that too quickly. Elon's done some crazy stuff to Twitter. I don't know if that's actually true anymore, but you used to be able to suck all your data out of Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, they sucked it all out of Brazil recently.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the point, is that you are in charge of the data that you have shared. And I go farther to say that a service that you share data with must be able to provide to you any third parties that they've shared your data with on your behalf. You should be able to look that up, and you should be able to request that data is denied and deleted through the same Bill of Rights way of thinking. The service becomes your representative to those third parties. The service, and these are not the greatest examples, but if YouTube has shared data with LinkedIn on my behalf, then YouTube should be able to revoke that sharing on my behalf at maybe the press of a button on some status page that I have access to.
You go to the sharer, not the sharee.
That's right.
Sharer is the one who's ultimately responsible.
I shouldn't have to track it down to, in this example, LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I should only have to go as far as YouTube in this example.
Right.
Because I'm sharing with them, and for some reason, it became okay to share it with this third party. Something I answered, something I decided to do, something I decided to turn on, made it okay to share with this third party, and YouTube initiated that. Keep in mind, people, these are not real examples. You're not going to go in and find a YouTube, LinkedIn relationship. This is just...
So, something I mentioned when we first started talking about this the other day, that it's kind of the reverse of this, which is a right to your data, a right to the thing. So let's say you've had a Facebook account for 15 years, right? And you've uploaded your entire life pictures of there, right? Like every meal that you've had and every date that you've gone on and every child that's been born, right? You have shared that with the world, and you have shared that with Facebook, right? And then at some point in time, Facebook decides that you have perpetrated misinformation.
You're a bad boy.
You have posted the dreaded misinformation, and you should be removed digitally. And so now your memories, your pictures, and everything.
Last year there was a real life example of this that went viral on the internet. Some tech guy had put together all his, he was using signed in by Google,
mm-hmm.
and he was doing all his home automation through Google. He was doing all his devices, his phones, his tablets, all through his Google.
Okay.
And something happened, and they revoked his account, and he lost connections to everything.
Oh, okay.
He was left in a state where he couldn't control smart home items. He couldn't control deliveries of stuff. He couldn't get into services that he used regularly. All because Google, and keep in mind, Google does not have a human department for you to approach when they've made a mistake. They have a grievance form that you fill out that gets analyzed by, I would assume, an AI. Yes. And if it meets the criteria, maybe it'll go on to a real person to consider the case. In this case, the guy was never able to sort it out. And
my God.
And that is the worst case scenario. Like you were describing before, you get kicked off of Facebook, your entire life is in. Well, right now, there isn't an easy way for you to have claim to that.
A lot of times it's just going to be gone. Yeah.
And so this right to remove is also a right to receive, to always be able to get data from that service. The service might have decided you can't use it anymore, but they can't decide they don't have to give you back your data. Right.
No, that's what I'm saying. And you might even put something in this thing, because that is a big concern. It's happened, and it's happened a lot, and there's a lot of people that get on the wrong side of that, and then they lose. If they're permanently banned, they have no recourse. They have no way to get that stuff back. And
I think Robbie, when we write, a service must provide a means for a user to collect and download all data they've shared with the service.
Okay, yep, I see that now.
It does not matter why you've lost access.
Right.
What matters is that they're ready to give you back your shit.
You have the means to do that. Okay, I see it now. I guess I skipped over that sentence.
Well.
No, I mean, this is that's a huge thing right there. It's a because, like we talked about in the beginning,
digital persona is you.
Exactly. We keep growing. Our digital personas keep growing every day. There's more of us online. There's more of our being is intertwined with our online being.
And it's more than the creations we put on YouTube. It's the door to our garage.
Right.
It's the food cooking in the microwave.
Yep.
It's all the digital activities that we do.
It's the timer to remind me to let the dogs back in. Oh gosh. Okay, so all right, number 9.
Number 9.
Getting down there.
The right to defend.
Yep.
Now, this to me is intuitive, but it's not enshrined as a protection. And I think that we would be better off if it was a fundamental right, a principle that everyone has to follow, is that there's nothing illegal about defending your digital persona against malware, spyware, eavesdropping, spying, adware. It needs to be perfectly acceptable, perfectly legal for me to set up blockades, run ad blocking software, require extra authentication. Anything that I have put in place to protect my digital persona from being exploited should be considered legal.
Okay.
Now, so long as the technology that you use can adhere to the Bill of Digital Rights and it follows our community standards as we've set them. And by default, we're assuming that our community regulations have followed the Bill of Digital Rights, right?
Yep.
Like there shouldn't be anything in our community that doesn't already meet these rights. So you can make a law. You can make a law to, I'm not even thinking of a good example, but you can make regulation as long as it keeps in mind these principles,
right?
And it can be added on to this idea. As long as the software what am I trying to get at? Actually, it's like like if I'm using a piece of software to block adware, but I'm also collecting IP addresses so that later I can have a bot farm off of all the computers that were trying to attack me. There's some area there that's not That's not right.
Right.
And they could have a law against stuff like that. And that would be right to have a regulation saying you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
All that is fine. Or maybe it is okay to do that. It's like, oh, yeah, you've got the right to collect all the IPs and you can do whatever. I mean, we're not talking about offensive behavior. We're talking about defensive behavior.
A service that, let's say YouTube, in order to watch their service, you have to have some kind of advertisements, right?
If I put up an ad blocker because I don't appreciate the advertising, there should be nothing illegal about that.
Okay, but on the other hand, can't YouTube say, but you watching the advertisement is part of the experience of
they can take away the service. They can take away the service.
Take away the service. If you use it, not illegal, but they can take away the service from you. Correct. I mean, there's nothing stopping them from doing that. Right.
That's right. In fact, I think it's really important in this discussion that we continue to make clear a terms of service is not a law.
Right.
Terms of service is what you agreed to when you click the box that nobody reads.
Mm-hmm.
That gives the organization all the power to do what they do with you and your data. That's what the terms is. That you have agreed to allow them to do these things to you when you hit that terms of service.
Right.
Yep. We do not, those terms of services should be in violation of our digital rights just from the beginning because nobody knows what's inside them. But just like we were talking about with the Disney Plus example, that should be completely illegal. That should be a complete violation of our digital rights. They had no idea what we were signing up for, and it should not have been applied across dozens of different organizations.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
That there's nothing about that. I mean, intuitively, that's not the right way to treat each other. That's not.
No, exactly. That's absolutely 100%.
So my concern
that should work.
And throughout the years, I've heard things that make you concerned about this. The idea that you were employing some technology to protect yourself is considered illegal. It's considered an arm, kind of like the right to bear arms. You have a right to defend your person, and you can use all legal pieces of technology to do that.
Mm-hmm.
The legal pieces of technology are the ones that conform to this digital Bill of Rights and all the laws that we've put into place. As long as you're using methods that have complied with those regulations, there's nothing illegal about you shutting off advertisements from from YouTube, or blocking junk mail, any of those things. It should never be considered a legal issue.
Right.
You have the right to defend yourself. The same way you have the right to defend your house or defend your family. You have a right to defend your digital persona.
Gotcha. Nope, absolutely. And like you said, it's the terms of service should be between you and the company and not.
But it should be much more intimate, and it should be much more educational.
Yes.
People should know what they're getting into. And if the education, I'll give you a good example. You remember when Apple decided they weren't going to anonymously allow your data to go to third parties. We went through that. Like there was a period of time just a few years back where you would install some apps on your phone and they had rights to everything you did.
To everything on your phone. Right.
Well, yeah. They basically had rights to all this other data that was collected. And there were ways that you could get into your privacy settings and do some monkeying around to try and drop it. But the default was they had these app providers had a level of access that you weren't aware of.
Right. That you had to go in and figure out a way to turn it off.
not only you had to figure out what was going on, you had to figure out that you were being exploited in the first place, and then you're on your own to figure out how to stop it.
Right.
Apple, they changed their whole attitude towards it. They're like, we're not going to let third parties do this without the user knowing. And everyone that has an iPhone knows this now. You install an app, you turn it on, it asks you if you want to share this data with third parties.
Yes.
And you know what? Over 90% of people say no, don't share it. Now, that is a clear indication. That's a community voting.
Exactly.
That's a community that's decided this is it's my right.
No, exactly.
And I think that if you were to amend this to a constitution, to put this in legalese, to make it a law, then you would see all these tech companies, they would all have to have screens like that. Right? We would all be making those choices. And, you know, when it hits 90% across all different layers of technology, 90% of car owners don't want to share their personal data with Siri. The 90% of smart home owners don't want to share to the cloud when they come home from work.
Yeah, right. I mean, no, exactly.
Or they don't want to. Right. When we reach that point, when it's so obvious, businesses are going to stop trying to profit off of it. They're going to have to find another way to be successful.
Oh, absolutely.
Outside of exploiting us.
Yep.
But the last one here is a right to privacy.
Number 10.
This is a right to digital privacy. And I like how this reads, so I want to read it verbatim.
Okay.
Everyone has the right to freedom from solicitation. An unsolicited email, phone calls, chat messages, and so on are violations of your digital rights. Registering on a no-call list as a metaphor, not as an implementation, must override any individual request for solicitation by any services. The no-call list, the metaphorical no-call list, must have a default and allow for exceptions that allow a solicitation service to present options to a user. The reason I've written it like this is because I recognize, we all are familiar with what a no-call list. It's been very ineffective in our culture.
Absolutely.
But what we know is that if I signed up for a federal no-call list and I get a call from somebody, then they are already in violation of the no call. I haven't paid any attention. I think that has not been ratified. I would only assume that because of the amount of calls we're still getting unsolicited.
Yeah, right. And text messages now. Holy God.
But if we put this into the digital Bill of Rights, then every time, every logged phone call, every junk email that you're intending to block that still comes through is a violation of your digital rights. There can be, because of that, because of the nature of your rights being violated, there will be some kind of repercussion.
They should have to pay you like a dime every time they do it.
I'm not against that kind of implementation. Right? In fact, maybe what your spam folder ends up becoming is your revenue generator.
Yeah, right.
Just report it to the government, and if they don't want to be fined, they send you 10 cents for every email they send you.
No, exactly.
Again, no, we're not writing about that here, but
no.
Yeah, sure. I don't know how we're gonna implement to guarantee these rights. I have some ideas. You've heard me talking about some ideas.
Yes.
They're all kind of tongue in cheek because I really want to keep it loose. I want to keep it to the idea of fundamental values that we can enshrine in law that must be protected. And that's why I use the Bill of Rights as an example for this idea. The United States was founded on the Bill of Rights. Our Constitution was built on it.
It's founded on fundamental freedoms.
That's right.
Unalienable rights that we have that are not, it's not like they're given to us by government. These are our rights. And the government cannot make any policies that violate these rights.
That's right.
And they should be more, and this goes into the broader topic of government these days, where, as you can see from my shirt, the whole concept of we the people we've gotten away from that because because we can't afford lobbyists. I mean, that's what it comes down to. As we the people don't have lobbyists, and we need more folks in government that recognize that it should be we the people and not we the corporations, or we the
Our government really is spending more time protecting the ability to do business.
Yes.
And it makes sense because of the history of the United States. We started out the Wild West. Anybody can do anything. I mean, you can see it. It's a joke in Mexico. You go to a pool, you go to a swimming pool in Mexico. Typically, there isn't a big board with a list of rules. Have you ever had that experience in the United States?
No, there's always rules.
There's always a list of rules. And the reason there's a list of rules is because in our culture, if we don't say you can't do it, it's assumed you can. That's our foundation. That's where we start. We're a bunch of people looking to do whatever we can.
No, and so I'll challenge you a little bit on that too. Is if it's not listed and you do it and you screw up and something happens to you, then it's the fault of the pool and they can be sued.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's the litigious part of it too, where people are just looking for a payday. And so if it says no running, or if it doesn't say no running and I run and I slip and I fall down and I break my leg, that's not on me. That's your fault. So,
man, yeah, that is a whole other side of our culture. That is a problem as well. Mm-hmm. I would like to stick to digital issues.
Okay, I got you. Yeah.
That's really my background. We're not going to be able to solve all the world's problems in one conversation.
No, exactly.
But this does feel like a good foundation for governments and businesses and for our own personal ethics to start from. This principle, very much similar to the Bill of Rights. You were trying to say it before. The rights are not given to us by the government. They're guaranteed. We always had these rights, and the Bill of Rights guarantees the government can't touch them.
Correct.
It's making it clear that it's recognizing that these are areas that the government can't do it. And then they have to work from that foundation. They have to look at that list. And when they're making rules, they have to look at that list and see, are we violating any of these things in the Bill of Rights? When a corporation makes rules for their culture, they have to look and see if they're violating any constitutional Bill of Rights issues. They've been doing it for years. It's what we've based our governments on.
Right. No, exactly. It's
right now we're in this mode of regulation, and we're seeing it in all different places. I really intended to bring up in this conversation, I'll do it now, I meant to bring it up when we were talking about right to repair. Walz, the vice president pick for Paris, and this is not a political thing, but it is sort of, because he is really kind of famous for one of the most stringent right to repairs laws in the United States right now. His state was able to set it so that companies are required to have documentation on how to fix things and parts in the marketplace for up to 7 years.
Okay.
Except for John Deere Right. And I was sharing this with my computer club, and one of my members is like, why would you be so impressed by what he got done if you've got cybersecurity's one of them, farm equipment's one of them. There was a couple others that are not included in the right.
Like there's exceptions to this.
Exceptions to the right to repair in his state.
Okay.
And I told my club member, I'm like, you should use that as an example of the problem we have with big tech. The problem is they have so much money that they can lobby to be outside of this.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yep. Same with John Deere. John Deere was able to get their lobbyists in there to say, nope, don't include us.
But if we ratified a bill of digital rights, it wouldn't matter how much money they had. They would be in violation. And persistent violations would require us to get stronger and harder on each corporation that did it. And we would have to make examples out of them. And the fines would get higher. And the regulations would get stiffer as they continued to try and violate our digital rights.
Right. And so finally, and we've kind of hit on it a lot. We've talked about it, I think, in a way, but where do you see the opposition to this coming from?
Oh yeah.
Where do you see the
I don't see it coming from you.
The pushback for this. Where does that come from, Scott?
You know what's interesting? I don't see it coming from you. And realistically, I don't see it coming from any particular individual. These are good things. These are things that protect individuals.
Right. And the outside of any kind of political partisan feelings that you have, this set of foundations is absolutely one of, it is completely bipartisan. There is no partisan anything in any of these. It's more freedoms for people in their digital person. So yes.
Yeah,
so anyway, back to my question about opposition. Where do you see the opposition coming from? I mean, it's obvious.
Well, yeah, it's obvious. I mean, we obviously, when we get self-regulation from large companies, it's because they fear regulation. It's the only reason. They are not altruistic. They are not trying to do good. They're trying to make money. That's their whole goal. That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be profitable. But right now, these organizations are being profitable at the expense of manipulating ourselves. There's an aspect of this that we haven't really touched on, and that's just the amount of fraud that's been going on. There are operations out there that are making unsolicited phone calls, getting people to they're social engineering people. There are people that are losing fortunes to miscreants that are bad actors out there.
No, exactly. Absolutely.
Many of these things that they do might be more difficult if the organizations that make those technologies available are following these kinds of principles. Your right to your own data, your right to opt out, these things would make it. I'm sorry, Robbie. I'm trying to go through my list, and I can't scroll the screen that you've got in front of me.
Oh, we gotcha. Yep.
The right to defend, your right to privacy, these kinds of things, if included in a business plan of some organization, might just prevent somebody from using their technologies for exploiting other people.
Right. Exactly. A friend of mine, when you talk about, bad actors and stuff, her daughter is away at college. She gets a phone call from the police in the county that she's in. She's in Kentucky. And the phone number traces back to the police department says that we've stopped your daughter and her friend that was with her, and we found drugs on her, and we have her at the station, and we don't believe it's her drugs, but we took both of them in the car because they didn't want to give it up, and went through this whole thing. New information about her daughter. Talked about her friend and basically what was going to happen, and then it got down to the bail, and it wasn't until had her hook, line, and sinker because one, the phone number matched, two, knew all this information about her daughter, and then said, how do you want to handle the bail? As soon as they said that, something rang in her brain. She went, wait a minute. She told her husband to call her daughter, and her husband's like, what do you mean call your daughter? She's in jail. He's like, just call her. She answers the phone. Hello. How's it going? Like, you're not in jail? Nope. It was completely 100% a scam. But it felt so legit, and that's happening daily, right? These people are just daily pulling these things off, and they have this information about these people, right?
Well, and
that's a big part of it, is having the information.
Yeah, having the information. In terms of the Bill of Digital Rights, any information they had should be traceable. It should be vettable.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like if this is true, then where'd you get it? Give me the hash code or whatever method we're using to vet the information. I know that you're correct, that you're actually a good actor that I'm talking. Hey, right. This is a little off topic, but
okay.
Given your example there, let me just say no one should be answering the phone anymore.
Oh, correct.
Like I would never have a chance to be worried about my daughter in jail because I would never have recognized the phone number and I would never have answered the phone. This stuff has become so insidious that I teach people, don't answer the phone, never answer the phone, vet your phone numbers, keep them in your contact. Be careful. Right. To take it even a step farther, if you have a bad actor around you, physically around you, don't allow your phone in their presence because they switch contact numbers.
Mm-hmm.
The only way you should, because they're unsolicited, and they should stop. Every time you get an unsolicited phone call, it should be questionable whether it was legal. Not whether it's real, but whether it was legal to call you in the first place. Right.
Yeah.
And
I like it.
If we had organizations that were following this kind of doctrine, there would be systems in place to report numbers like that. So I got another one from this number.
Right.
And these phone numbers are known. You can't make phone calls without a phone company knowing the phone numbers. That's not the way the technology works. These phone numbers are known. Somebody's bought them.
But they're you're able to spoof numbers now on cellular phones.
Sure, but you can't connect. When you connect with a real connection.
Right.
But what we don't have is we don't have a telecommunications industry that recognizes the rights of the individual to protect themselves. And so they don't have a methodology for you to report these spoofed calls so that they can accumulate them into a pool and track down the bad actors. They don't have anything in place for that. And I'm generalizing. I'm not working for AT&T. I'm sure they've got some department that's dedicated to doing some of this stuff. But my point is they should have to.
They're all saved in Utah, right? Have free communication everywhere
with Hillary's emails. She never had to give them up. We already had them.
Patty, I think you were correct. They are all crooks.
You're right, Patty.
Patty is our original moderator, and
well, that goes through this document. And the concepts, the ideas behind it. I'm fairly excited since I've written it up. I've shared it. I see Theo's in our group here. Mm-hmm. He's shared it with other collaborators, brought new ideas to it. We've got it out there right now as a Google Doc asking for commenters, and the doc has been passed off to one of our local representatives, Zach Fields. He is in the process of getting the legalese written up so that he can start pushing it as a bill, as an amendment to the Alaskan Constitution.
No, that'll be neat to see. That'll be neat to follow. And yeah, I mean, this just get the conversation going, right? Because I mean, that's what we need to have. We need more of this kind of conversation, because it every day we get more and more entwined. Like I said, our digital persona and our real persona every day becomes more as one. So as one thing. So
yeah, they are, we are them. They are us.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to protect them in the digital realm the same way we protect ourselves with the Bill of Rights in the physical realm.
Exactly. Nope. And we it's gone so fast that we haven't, it's good to think about these things, because, it's getting away from us quickly. So, but yeah, I like this.
The idea of it getting into government law, getting it into as part of the Constitution bill, that's a law, however that's going to work, is going to take years. But these are the right concepts. And just by fighting for this kind of thinking, it will get out there in the world as just applying these concepts, making people aware of them. And that's really what we're doing, is we're trying to make it clear the things that you should be pissed off about and what kind of protections that you should demand from your governments and what kind of rules that you would expect from any organization that you might do business with, and how any individual might treat you should all be shaped by these fundamental principles.
Absolutely. 100% they should. And we should have representation that looks after our individual rights, both in the physical world and in the digital world.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, on that note,
hey, can I plug something at the end here?
You absolutely. You plug away. Cool. Anything you want to plug it.
So I live a very eclectic life. I spend a lot of time down in Mexico. I spend many months up here in Alaska in the summers. We run a computer club. Anybody is welcome to join us. It is typically a virtual meeting online at scclub.org. You can find the information. We have a YouTube channel. We meet every Tuesday at 10. Anyone is welcome. We talk about these kinds of things all the time.
www.scclub.org.
Yeah, if you want to go old school with it, sure. Works too.
See if that works. Hey, look at that.
Hey, excellent.
Posted that.
We talk about all kinds of stuff. The community I live in Mexico is kind of an expat retirement community. And so the club is made up with people that are tech enthusiasts, that are typically retired seniors. And I'll tell you, these people have time to talk about these issues. The rest of us are running around trying to make rent payments, but these retired folks have time to ponder what's happening. And it's really interesting to hear about their experiences with technology, the scams they've had to deal with, the things, the troubles, the tribulations they have, trying to do things like get their name spelled right in a form, or get access to their Social Security information when they're abroad. It's just,
oh, right. Yeah.
These are all the kinds of things that people deal with. Being elderly and being out of the country and being online. So that's our club. We do an in-person meeting on Tuesdays when I'm in San Carlos. Otherwise, it's a virtual meeting. But check it out, scclub.org.
Excellent.
And then I have a computer consulting business. I do remote consulting as well. So if you've got computer problems out there in your world, I'd like you to make me your solution. Check out SCC, or what am I saying? That's the computer goal.
Yeah.
International CS.net, International Computer Solutions.
Internationalcs.net. All right. Okay, we'll put that one out there too. Look at that. Oh my goodness.
Awesome. All right.
Yes. Well, cool. Well, Scott, it's been wonderful hanging out, as it always is.
As always, I love hanging out with you, Robbie.
You always have a way of getting. What am I trying to say? I was trying.
I don't know. Sing it.
Thought provoking. You're a very thought provoking kind of person, and the conversations that we have always are some of the best conversations that I have in my life. And so,
oh, well, thank you. I hope that means that I'll be invited back on this at some point.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, please keep us updated. We can do this. We can do this while you're here. And the cool thing is I can send you a link and we can do this remotely. So awesome. I can have you come back anytime. And you have the setup at home to do this as well, right?
Got my own studio.
You got your own studio, so we can definitely keep updates. We can keep this going. And I'm gonna take what we've done here tonight and probably make some shorter videos to put out there online. And
that sounds awesome. And you're welcome, Patty. Yes. I'm glad you found it informative. I would invite all of you, anybody that's paying attention to this, to share this document, this concept with other people. It really is us that needs to push this forward. Companies will not think about this. The governments don't know what to think about this. I mean, most of our government is geriatric. They don't even understand these concepts that we're upset with.
It's a series of tubes, Scott.
Tubes.
Series of tubes.
Awesome.
That was
that's totally an Alaskan meme now too.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Ted Stevens. Yep. So
well, I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Robbie.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for when you said this the other day, I was like, man, that's right up my alley. So I'm glad we had this time, and I look forward to keep this going, to get updates on it. And and Scott is also in the show. He has a little scene in our show too. So
oh yes,
look for that. I'm working on the trailer. I've got my concepts down now. I just got to get to the editing part of it. But all right, well, thank you everyone for showing up, and for folks that see this later, thank you very much.
Oh, hey, Robbie, before we sign off,
yes,
can we make sure this is a YouTube video as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So why don't we make sure that a link to this document's available in the description?
Okay. Yeah. No, we can do that. I can absolutely go do that. Yes, I will put that in. Do I need to do it now before I hang up?
You can do it later. I'm sure you can just edit it later. And if anybody's interested in reaching out to me directly, my email's scott@internationalcs.net or scott@scclub.org.
Right. And then do you have the link for me?
Sent it to you before
the show. Okay. I will go do that right now.
Okay.
So, okay. Well, thank you very much. And I will probably see you tomorrow.
All right. Thank you, Internet.
Yep. Adios. And thank you very much, Scott, for all of this. This is a very, very cool concept.
Thank you for giving me the time, Robbie.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, guys. We will see you later.
All right.